So, good morning, everyone. Good day. Sir. Good day. In today's video, I am going to explain to you about the engine starting and the engine starting procedures of the C-172 plane, the turbine engine aircraft, the aircraft marshalling, and the light signals. So, the first one is the engine starting. So, why is this important? So starting an aircraft engine is specialized procedure and varies with an individual engine and aircraft. Therefore, before starting an aircraft engine, be sure to study the procedures in the appropriate airplane flight manual and get instructions from an experienced operator. So yun daw nga. Before we start the engine, dapat kailangan natin na nakarely tayo sa ating manual on how to start and when to start the engine. So however, certain general guidelines apply to all reciprocating and turbine engine powered aircraft. So yun. So before starting an engine, be sure to check all of the aircraft documents such as aircraft logbook. So yun daw, before starting an engine, dapat i-check natin yung aircraft logbook natin para may idea tayo and to become aware sa ating engine kung ano yung history niya and whatnot. So aircraft logbook contains all the information of this aircraft history and previous troubleshooting and problems that occurred during the flight operation. So yun daw. So kakasabi ko lang kanina na it contains all of the information about the aircraft history. So para aware tayo and para malaman natin kung ano ba yung kailan na dapat gawin and kailangan na hindi dapat gawin. As an aviation technician, you must make sure that the aircraft is working properly under the airworthiness condition. Yes, of course. If we are working in the aviation industry and for example, isa na ako aviation technician, I must make sure that the aircraft is working properly. And hindi lang working properly but nagre-rely and nagko-comply sa airworthiness condition. In some general aviation, the other aircraft documents like the ARROW, which is the ARROW, are attached along with the aircraft logbook so that they can easily carry and check the aircraft. So ARROW or ARROW means Airworthiness Certificate, Registration Certificate, Radio Certificate, Operating Manual or Pilot Operating Handbook or the POH, and lastly is the Weight and Balance Certificate. This 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This 5 is important because this rely and it must comply to the regulatory body. So what is our regulatory body? It's the CAP. Kailangan nating mag-comply, kailangan nating sundin yung limang to and kailangan nating meron tayo dito. So, the first one is airworthiness certificate. Siyempre, kailangan natin maging airworthy ang ating aircraft. Second one is registration certificate. Of course, kailangan natin na registered yung ating aircraft before, para makalipad. Pwede naman makalipad pero hindi na yun airworthy. So, radio certificate. So, yun nga. It means that kailangan natin merong radio certificate yung ating aircraft to communicate in the different air traffic control, tower control, and the different aircraft. Ganun. The operating manual or pilot operating handbook. Yes, kailangan natin to. Kasi it contains the basic flight maneuvers like kung paano ba, like kunyari, if there are storm, ganun, kung saan tayo magagawa ng navigation plan, mga ganun. This all contains in the pilot operating handbook or the POH. And lastly is the weight and balance certificate. So, pag hindi balance yung ating aircraft, incidents or accidents will happen because our aircraft relies on gravity or yes, it relies on the gravity and dapat properly distributed yung ating gravity to the aircraft para ano, to prevent the stall and especially yung accidents kasi pag magkaroon ng stall, there would be a accidents or incidents that would happen. And nowadays, General Aviation Company added a insurance certificate. So by the word itself, insurance certificate, the certificate is all about insurance that kung ano kung ano man yung mangyari is yun, may insurance tayo. So engine starting procedures, reciprocating engines. So in addition, prior to starting an engine, ensure that the propeller area is clear to prevent possible injury and the technician should shout that the propeller area is clear. I mean clear. So yun daw, before starting the engine, kailangan natin i-check kung clear ba yung ating area. So, kasi pag may tao dyan, tas pag umandar yung yung propeller, possible na matatamaan yung personnel na nasa paligid na yun. And possible pa na yun yung magkakos ng death sa ating kapwa technician. So yun daw. The aircraft should not be parked in an area of loose gravel since small stones can be sucked up into the propeller and damage the blades. Yes, of course. Kasi yung ating propeller is masyado siyang powerful. So if umandar yan, if nag-start yung ating engine, possible na masak ng propeller yung mga loose gravel and pwede tong tumama sa ating aircraft parts like obviously the first one is the propeller blades and magkakaroon to ng damage like nicks and cracks and bends. Furthermore, be sure that the blast from the propeller does not blow dirt into any hangar or building or onto another aircraft. So yun daw. So dapat daw yung aircraft natin is nakatutok sa safe na direction. There's always a possibility of fire when starting an engine. Because of this, you should always have a carbon dioxide fire extinguisher of adequate capacity available. So bakit there is always a possibility of fire when starting an engine? Because when starting an engine, isa itong kasi naka-ground yung ating aircraft eh. So once na nag-start yung engine, meron pa yung mga excess fuel and it can cause backfiring to the um, to our exhaust stack or exhaust system. For starting large aircraft where it is not possible to see the engine when it is being started, a fire guard must be stationed near the engine. Induction system fires are the type which occur most frequently in reciprocating engines. The reason for this is if an engine is overprimed and then fires back through the carburetor, the gasoline in the induction system can ignite. If this occurs, the best procedure is to continue cranking and start the engine if possible. Once started, the engine will suck the fire into the cylinders and no further damage can occur. So yun nga, if magkaroon ng backfiring, kailangan lang natin na ipagpatuloy yung cranking and starting the engine. Kasi pag nag-start na yung engine, masasak niyan yung air dun sa carburetor with the fire papunta sa cylinder at papunta na yun sa exhaust stack natin. So engine starting procedures, the C172 starting procedures. So before starting engine, be sure to complete the pre-flight inspection, check and adjust the seat belts, and shoulder harness. So yun daw. Syempre before flight and before starting the engine, kailangan natin mag pre-flight inspection kasi doon natin makikita yung mga sira, mga kailangang palitan and kailangang i-maintain. So turn the fuel selector valve on both position and radio and electrical equipment to off. So bakit natin kailangan gawin to? Kailangan natin gawin to because naka-both position yung ating fuel selector valve in order to suck yung mga or gamitin yung mga excess fuel na ginamit before the flight. And kailangan din nating i-off yung radio and electrical equipment kasi it is it is possible na magkaroon ng short circuit when starting the engine. Lastly, circuit breakers must all check in position and brakes must test and set. So, daw yung mga brakes natin kailangan tested yan and hindi natin dapat yan i-overdo. So during engine starting, mixture control on reach position, carburetor heat on cold or off position, and master switch must be on. So first, master switch must be on. Tapos, I mean, the first one is the mixture control natin, dapat naka-reach position kasi kung nasa lean position to, mas maraming air yung pumapasok sa ating carburetor and that would lead to mataas na air to fuel ratio. Kaya kailangan natin i-reach. And another reason for this is nasa ground pa naman tayo and masyado pang dense yung ating ambient air. So carburetor heat on cold or off position. It is because carburetor heat, pag naka-on yan, um, nag, pag naka-on yung carburetor heat natin, binabypass niya yung coming air into the carburetor kaagad. So hindi na yan dadaan sa filter. So pag hindi na duman sa filter, um, nagkakaroon tayo ng hangin na unfiltered which can cause sa sa engine damage, mga ganun. And master switch must be on. Yes, of course, kailangan natin itong i-on para ma-start yung ating aircraft. Primer as required and in the warm temperatures, apply 1 or 2 strokes of the primer should be sufficient. So, kailangan dito 1 or 2 strokes lang kasi nasa warm temperatures naman tayo. In colder temperatures, apply up to 6 strokes of the primer may be necessary. So, we are doing this because in the colder temperatures, nahihirapan mag-start yung ating engine. So, kailangan natin 6 strokes, may be necessary na yun. If the engine is warm, no priming is required and in extreme temperatures, it may be necessary to continue priming while cranking the engine. Open the throttle, approximately 1/8 inch to provide air to enter into the induction system during starting. So, yun daw. Pag nag-start tayo ng ating engine, yung throttle natin kailangan nakabukas ng kahit approximately 1/8 lang. The reason for this is because kapag nakabukas yung ating throttle, nagbubukas din yung butterfly valve dun sa ating carburetor. And pag nakabukas yun, nasasak niya yung air na dadaloy papunta sa ating cylinder. So, pag meron tayong enough air, the cycle or the combustion is maybe sufficient. Propeller area must clear and all technician must respond and acknowledge with the word clear. So, start the starter with the starting switch or key, release when engine starts. So, parang sa sasakyan lang na, kunyari, pag nag-start tayo ng engine, syempre clockwise, tapos, tutunog pa yun eh. After mag-start ng engine, release na yung ating switch, ating key, ganun. If the engine is underprimed, most likely in cold temperature with the cold engine, it will not fire at all and additional priming will be necessary. So yun nga, sabi kanina sa previous slides na kailangan natin ng 6 priming will do na. As soon as the engine cylinder begin to fire, open the throttle slightly to keep the engine running. So pag nag-start na yung ating engine, dapat natin buksan yung ating throttle para magkaroon ng fuel and air mixture from the carburetor papunta sa cylinder head. Oil pressure must check. So, bakit natin kailangan gawin to? Kasi pag mababa yung oil pressure, kasi yung oil pressure is nagiging lubricant and nagiging um, heat absorbent sa ating engine. So, pag mababa yung low pressure, I mean, pag mababa yung pressure, so let's say low pressure, um, walang enough na oil na dumadaloy sa engine and it can cause na sa tinatawag natin na overheating. After starting After starting, if the oil gauge does not begin to show pressure within 30 seconds in the summertime and about twice that long in very cold weather, stop the engine and investigate. Lack of oil pressure can cause serious engine damage. After starting, make sure to avoid the use of carburetor heat unless icing conditions prevail. So yun nga daw. So yun nga, and explain ko sa previous slides na kailangan nating i-off yung carburetor heat para clean air yung pumapasok sa ating um, carburetor and cylinder head. So a weak intermittent firing followed by puffs of black smoke from the exhaust stack indicate overpriming or flooding. Excess fuel can be cleared from the combustion chamber by the following procedures. So there are three. The first one is the set the mixture control full lean and throttle full open. So bakit natin full lean? So full lean natin to, it is because mas maraming air yung pumapasok sa combustion chamber natin. Kasi pag marami yung fuel, magkakaroon pa rin yan ng black smoke because of overreach na mixture. So then crank the engine through several revolutions with starter. Number 3 is repeat the starting procedure without any additional priming. So sa mga in-explain ko na yun is all about the basic procedures when starting the engine. So today, in this slide, I am going to explain to you about the hand propping. So the word itself, hand and propping, which is propping the propeller, um, is a procedure with which all technicians should be familiar, as it is possible for a battery to become discharged when no auxiliary power is available. It is important that no person ever attempt to prop an aircraft until being thoroughly checked out in the procedure. So yun daw. Hindi natin binabasta yung hand propping because tayo mismo yung nag-hand prop eh. So if tayo mismo yung nag-hand prop, um, and wala tayong alam, pwedeng little lang yung ating knowledge about hand propping, it may lead to accidents. Kasi malakas yan yung pag-hand prop natin ng propeller. Kasi pipitik yan yung ating propeller, yung ating engine kasi yung propeller, na-connect yan sa ating engine. So now let's proceed to turbine engine aircraft. Turbine engine aircraft usually have enough automatic sequencing by the fuel control so that starting is less involved than starting a reciprocating engine of comparable power. But the extremely high cost of turbine engine aircraft and the possibility of severe damage in the event of an improper start make it doubtfully important that only qualified personnel start these engines. One of the problems that can occur when starting a turbine engine is the lack of sufficient electrical power to get the engine up to proper speed for it to become self-accelerating in its operation. This condition can be minimized through the use of a ground power unit, which is the GPU, uh, and improper starts are usually one of the types, hot starts and hung starts. So yun daw, yung ating turbine engine aircraft, meron siya automatic sequencing by the fuel control so that starting is less involved compared to the reciprocating engine. Which is, for me, is parang mas madali ito start with the help of proper procedures and mga proper knowledge natin. Pero kailangan nating um, i i-acknowledge yung ating mga possible na mangyari, like kunyari sa mga hot starts and hang starts. So hang start. In gas turbine engines, a condition of normal light off but with RPM remaining at some low value rather than increasing to the normal idle RPM. So yun daw. So once na-start natin yung ating engine, tapos hindi siya na-maintain sa normal idle RPM, this is what we know as hung start. This is often the result of insufficient power to the engine from the starter. In the event of a hung start, the engine should be shut down. So pag magkaroon tayo ng hung start, yung engine natin kailangan i-shut down. Hot start naman in the gas turbine engines, a start which occurs with normal engine rotation but the exhaust temperature exceeds prescribed limits. This is usually caused by an excessively rich mixture in the combustor. The fuel to start the fuel to the engine must be terminated immediately to prevent engine damage. So after that, we will now proceed to aircraft marshalling. So what is aircraft marshalling? Aircraft marshalling refers to the visual communication between ground personnel and pilots in order to lead an aircraft to the correct parking position at an airport or aerodrome. So yun daw. Yung aircraft marshalling natin is, in other words, parang ina-assist natin yung aircraft together with the pilot to park the aircraft or para papuntahin sa specific na designated area. Marshalling is important because many pilots have limited vision both of the aircraft and of ground obstacles from the cockpit. Yes, of course, kasi yung ating aircraft may mga blind spots yan. And another reason for this is yung aircraft natin is walang side mirror. Well, yung iba meron like the fighter jets, mga ganun, pero most of the commercial jet is wala. Kaya kailangan natin and kailangan nating i-assist yung ating aircraft using the aircraft marshalling. So there are different aircraft marshalling signals. So kunyari hold or standby, place yourself facing me, normal stop, turn left. Turn left is pilot's view together with the turn right. Chocks inserted. Chocks inserted again pero yung nasa taas. Emergency stop. Pag nakikita natin dito is yung normal stop and emergency stop is may pagkaka may pagkakaiba. So yung normal stop is eto, nakikita natin na horizontal yung ating kamay. Unlike sa emergency stop na magsa-start tayo let's say mga 20 degree pataas kaagad. So ganun. So start engines, tas ituturo natin kung anong engines yung isa-start. Proceed, ituturo natin kung saan siya magpo-proceed. Chocks removed, move ahead, move back, connect to ground power, disconnect to ground power. Straight ahead, slow down, move back, all clear, negative, establish communication. When it comes to helicopter marshalling signals, may mga similarities and differences lang yan. Like for example is the hover. So ganyan lang, hover lang tayo. Land, land, then fire. Tapos ituturo natin kung engine or kung brake. Move horizontally left. So ituturo natin sa left na pilot's view. Engine rotor. Move horizontally right. And then ituturo natin together with the pilot's view. Move upwards, depart in the direction shown. Move downwards, and yun lang. So lastly is all about the light signals. So light gun. The light gun is a relatively large but still handheld projector which is aimed at the aircraft. The light gun is a relatively large but still handheld projector which is aimed at the aircraft. The controller uses a trigger to transmit either a series of pulses or a continuous stream of light and may choose the color of the beam which is the red, green, or white. So, mamaya i-explain ko kung ano yung importance nito. So, eto yung mga light signals natin. So, kunyari, pag green tayo, yung light mode natin is green. So, pag on the ground, authorized to take off if pilot is satisfied that no collision risk exists. So, pag kunyari, ako yung pilot, tas pag nakakita ko ng green light, so, parang ano lang yan parang traffic light. So, pag nakakita ka ng green light, pwede ka nang mag-go if yung pilot or yung driver is satisfied na. And if collision risk is eliminated or no collision risk exists. So pag nasa in-flight naman, authorized to land if pilot is satisfied that no collision risk exists. So yun daw. Pag kunyari, we are circling the airport, tapos nakita tayo ng green light from the ground. Pag nakita tayo ng green light, pwede na tayo mag-land, pero kailangan nating maging aware na and to know na wala ng collision risk exist. So, green flashing, authorized to taxi if pilot is satisfied that no collision risk exists. So, that is for the on-ground, and in-flight naman, return for landing. So, yun daw. Pag meron tayong green flashing, authorized to taxi if pilot is satisfied that no collision risk exists. Parang same lang yan sa ating green light. Pero dito, authorized to taxi. Unlike sa take-off na magta-take off yung ating airplane sa ating airport or aircraft. Dito naman is magta-taxi tayo. So, for in-flight naman is return for landing. Yun daw. Pag red light, parang self-explanatory na rin to eh. So, pag red light, pag i-compare natin sa ating mga sasakyan and sa traffic light, red light means stop, di ba? So, yun. Same lang din sa ating aircraft. So, kunyari dito sa ating aircraft, pag makakita tayo ng red light, kailangan natin mag-stop. Pag nasa ground kasi pag nasa in-flight, hindi tayo makaka-stop kasi because of lumilipad yung ating aircraft. So, pag in-flight naman, give way to other aircraft, continue circling. So, pag nakita tayo ng red light, kailangan natin mag-circle ulit para makatanggap na tayo ng green light. So, red means give way to other aircraft and continue circling until makareceive tayo ng green light. So, red flashing, taxi clear of landing area in use. So, it means that yung taxi natin is in use pa. So, pag in-flight naman, do not land, aerodrome is unsafe. So, pag may nakita tayong ganito, so kunyari, red flashing, do not land muna because the aerodrome is unsafe. So, lastly is the white flashing. So, pag makatanggap tayo ng white flashing in the pilot's view, on ground means that return to starting point on aerodrome. And in flight naman is return for landing. So, to have a recap, I have discussed to you the engine starting and the arrow, which is the airworthiness certificate, registration certificate, radio certificate, operating manual or pilot operating handbook, and the weight and balance certificate, and with the additional of the insurance certificate. I also discuss about the engine starting procedures of the reciprocating engines and the turbine engine procedures. Sa reciprocating engine procedures, there are normal starting procedures and the hand propping. So after that, I have discussed then yung aircraft marshalling, so the difference and similarities ng ng airplane marshalling and the helicopter marshallings. And lastly is I have discussed the light signals, which uses the light gun to communicate to the aircraft. So that is all for my report and my explanation about the engine starting, which is the lesson 2 of AMTE 232. And thank you for listening. Have a good day.